What's up everybody, you're watching Model Aviator, I'm Adam. This week we have a new release announcement and review of an airplane for you from Horizon Hobby. This is E-flite's latest, the Super Timber. This thing has features never before seen in a Timber or any other foam sport bush plane for that matter. It's sold as a plug and play for those of you that might not fly Spectrum, and for those of us that do, of course, a bind and fly. That's what we're reviewing today, and we'll start with the assembly. The manual covers what are just a few steps of assembly very well and in great detail. To be honest, it is the easiest to assemble timber we've gotten our hands on thus far. There's a very low part count. We started with the main gear assembly. The main gear legs go down into two brackets on the fuselage. There's channels in those brackets. You'll put bolts through the brackets and the gear legs themselves. You want to make sure the bolts are both pointing towards the inside bracket to bracket. You'll then put a lock nut onto the bolt, and the bracket itself keeps that lock nut from turning so that you can tighten it down. Be sure and don't over tighten that. Next, we'll install our suspension springs. You want to hook the long end of the spring into the axle on both sides, then hook the short side of the spring into the spring retainer, and then screw the spring retainer down onto the fuse. There's a single carbon spar for the horizontals, and they have a new locking tab system. You slide those into place until you hear the click, and they're installed. You'll find your carbon wing tube inside the fuselage in a clip that is meant for storage and transport. You pull that out, put it into place. The wings and fuse have automatic electronic connections built in. Slide the wings into place, and there's a new locking pin system we'll give you the details on in the model features section. At this point, we suggest you go ahead and bind the airplane to your transmitter. There's a magnetic hatch here where you can gain access to the receiver, the light controller, and the rudder and elevator servos. Once you get the control surfaces centered and your flaps sorted out, you can complete the last bit of assembly, which is to install the prop adapter to the motor and your prop and spinner. The Super Timber has a 68-inch wingspan. It's 45 inches long. Our example weighs 6 pounds, 14.4 ounces, ready to fly with a 6S 3200 pack. It has an Avian 85 amp Smart Light ESC, an Avian 5055 500 kV 14 pole motor, A347 9-gram digital metal gear servos, and is intended for use with 4S 3200 to 6S 5000 milliamp packs. With a wingspan of 1.7 meters, the Super Timber is a good-sized airplane. It's a bit big to be considered a park flyer, but flying it in a park is absolutely possible so long as the pilot is up for that. It's a 5-channel airplane out of the box. You have throttle, aileron, flaps, elevator, and rudder with a steerable tail wheel. And worth noting, that steerable tail wheel is hooked to its own aluminum bracket coming off of the fuselage, so you can run it through all kinds of rough terrain without putting any stress on the control surface itself. The airplane is equipped with a Spectrum AR637TA receiver. That's an AS3X optional Safe Select smart receiver. You have 6 channels, so there's an extra channel and you have some options. If you elect to activate Safe Select and you'd like to put that on a switch to flip between that and AS3X, that won't cost you an extra channel in these Spectrum systems, so you still have a channel available. You have the full array of smart telemetry available to a bind and fly airplane at your fingertips with the right transmitter, and if you scroll past the telemetry, you can get into avian programming and program thrust reverse. That is where the 6-channel is taken up, or you have another option. When it comes to these control surfaces, they're very high quality. The rudder and elevator are CA hinged. The ailerons and flaps have foam hinges with 3 pin hinges per surface, so they are not going anywhere, and the flaps are double bevel. So if you elect to forego the thrust reverse, you can use that 6-channel to program in full span ailerons, and you can do that with what comes in the box with the airplane. You need only remove a Y harness and adjust where some things are plugged in at the receiver, make some mechanical adjustments with the push rod and servo arm at the flap servo, which is easy to get to, and program in some mixes, and you are there. If you want full instructions on how to do that, download the TimberX manual, and the instructions there apply to the wing on this airplane. Now obviously, if you want all of the functions, thrust reverse, and being able to flip between full span ailerons and normal ailerons, you're going to need more than the 6-channel receiver that comes in it. The Super Timber has a full LED light set. There are landing, navigation, simulated rotating beacons, more LEDs than we've ever seen on a Timber before this one. The battery hatch is lined with plastic, as is the fuse, so you will never mar this up or scratch any paint off with constant removal and replacement. The gear is very robust. It's designed after the Carbon Z-Cub V2 gear, which is very, very strong. Some of the strongest gear we've ever seen on a Timber before. It has a battery tray system. It's nice to be able to just strap the battery in right here without having to try to get two hands and deep into a battery bay. When you take a look at this battery bay, there's a lot of room to mount the battery and lock it in place both fore and aft. And as you can see here, getting it in and out happens very quickly and very easily. Now, all these features we've gone over so far are things that we've seen before. Now it's going to get interesting because this airplane has some things that are first. So the first new thing, when you get to the field and when you get ready to leave the field, that can sometimes be the tedious part. With this one, you pull your wing tube out of your fuse, put it in the slot, and from there, it couldn't be simpler. To remove and replace your wing, press the locking tab to the rear and rotate it into the notch. Now you can pull your wing off. To replace the wing, you simply slide it into position, move it out of the tab and move it over. It is spring loaded, but you want to push it all the way forward to make sure it's fully engaged, and that's it. You may have noticed there are 4 sets of vortex generators per wing. You could also consider those really fancy slot covers. There is now a rod running the length of the leading edge on both wings. I'm not sure if that rod is made of carbon fiber or aluminum. Doesn't really matter. The VGs snap into place on that rod, as do the accessory slats that come with the airplane. So gone are the days where you had to decide, do you or don't you, and then deal with gluing them on, and then if you don't like them, having to cut them off. These things are interchangeable as often as you'd like now. Removing the VGs is easy. I've found putting my thumb there and my index fingernail underneath the trailing edge, pulling towards me, gets them off nice and easy. Replacing them is as simple as lining them up and pressing straight back. So when it comes to the slats, you have a carbon spar, if you will, on the slat that keeps it from bending and creasing so much, but as you can see, it's still pretty flexible. So to keep from putting creases in it, you want to make sure that you line these things up with the holes very carefully, and you want to make sure you know exactly where your mounting points are. You press at a 45-degree angle and they snap right into place. Do that 4 times, got your slat installed. You want to remove it, go back to the VGs. You want to make sure that you find your mounting point. I use my body to shield it, and I pull back at a 45-degree angle, and that keeps me from having a tendency to pull this too far and put a big crease in it, and it's as simple as that. And the final amazing new thing that comes with the Super Timber, the bead lock wheels and tires. These are soft rubber inflatable tires. They come with their own small sports pump. You can keep this in your flight pack. I suggest you do that. You will need it. These things can be inflated from 4 inches all the way up to 5.5 inches, and let me give you some perspective on these tires. They weigh 1.8 ounces per tire. Compare that to the 5.5-inch Dubros that I have over there on my 15cc Carbon Cub. Those weigh 9.3 ounces per tire. Over a pound of tires on that airplane. Same size tires on this one. Less than 4 ounces. That is significant. Here's how they work. To bleed air from the tires, you want to remove your valve cap. That's just a friction fit rubber piece. Take your needle by itself, wet it so that it goes into the valve nice and easy. Put your finger over it and press it all the way in. Remove your finger to bleed as much air out of the tire as you'd like, and simply remove the needle. To pump it back up, you screw the needle into the hose on your pump. Again, you want to wet it so that it goes into the valve easily. Press it all the way in, and then pump the tire up to your desired diameter or pressure and pull it out. You want to replace your valve cap. These are a bit fiddly to put back, to be honest, but even though they're friction fit, we have not had an issue with these things coming out or even backing out at all under use. Now, full disclosure, the ones that I have on this airplane, and this was an airplane that was tested by people at Horizon before I got it, these tires do lose some air over time, so it is great that it's convenient and easy to pump them back up and easy to keep this in your flight pack, so just keep that in mind. I'm told that that is normal and that you can minimize that by taking them apart and using petroleum jelly on the seals when you put them back together if you'd like. I'm not going to do that because it's so easy to use this. I just don't care, but we had to tell you that. There are accessory parts available for this airplane. This is the part number to a set of floats that you can get to use, and of course these tires are going to be available for sale for $39.99 for the set with the pump. Worth noting, they are set up for larger axles. So right now, the way they are, they'll fit airplanes like the Carbon Z Cub, maybe the Carbon Z150 Draco, the Super Timber, stuff like that. They won't fit smaller planes like the 1.5 Timber Evo and airplanes smaller than that. But don't panic. You know how Horizon is. If these do well, you can bet a smaller set is in the works. When it comes to setup, the manual is written in the latest format that explains step-by-step how to program your transmitter, whichever one that may be. Also, all the information to get you through to a preliminary setup for your Maiden is within. Expo, rates, throw, CG, stuff like that, it's all there, and of course from there you tweak the setup to your personal preference. That's pretty much what we did. We didn't do anything drastic. We didn't program full span ailerons. Only change we really made that is significant is we put the ball link on the control horn of the elevator to the innermost hole to maximize elevator throw at 100% throw on servo travel and in the rates. And other than that, we just have our own preference for expo settings and flap settings. It is pretty much box stock, and that's how most folks are going to fly this airplane, so that's how we wanted to fly it. We flew it on 4-cell and a couple different 6-cells, slats on, slats off, took it off of several different types of runways. You'll see all of that. Check out the flying setup page is next. You can pause that and check our setup out if you'd like. Check out the flying. We'll meet you back here. We'll give you our final thoughts. The Super Timber handles really well in slow flight. No bad habits. You'll see some stall tests later. And here's what it's got. Wide open throttle on 6-cell. As you saw, it does a nice flat spin, and those were full deflection rolls. It's very stable inverted, doesn't require a lot of down elevator to hold it, and you don't have to be going very fast to maintain it. As you're about to see, it knife edges very well and doesn't require much speed to maintain that either. There's a good bit of room to get the CG further back. We're at a rather conservative CG for us. Even with our conservative CG, it does pop tops, pinwheels, and flat spins. With full span ailerons and a more rearward CG, there's a lot more capability to be tapped into. I was really impressed with the efficiency of the power system. These demos don't show it because we're flying short demos to try to show so many different things and configurations, but we got 7 minutes with a 3200 and 10 with a 4000 doing the kind of mixed throttle flying you're watching here. As you'll see here, with the slats installed in what we consider to be the optimum battery pack, the 6L3200, the Super Timber slows down really well, holds a nice nose-high attitude. It's very stable there, and it doesn't require a ton of skill to hold it there. The slats do slow the roll rate down just a bit. We put it inverted and kept it there for a bit with the slats. I've read and heard in several places that you can't fly a model with slats inverted. A bit bizarre, but as you can see, that's not true. It's not really much different than flying it without the slats inverted. It doesn't require a lot of down elevator, and you don't have to be going very fast to maintain it. On the next landing, we're going to do a bit of a drop-in. That's a technique that bush pilots use. It is exactly what it sounds like. With the slats and utilizing reverse thrust, you can land this thing crazy short, and the gear and tires can take it. On our 4-cell 5000, the Super Timber still flew very well. The power doesn't set your world on fire with the stock prop. It's just okay. This is a full speed pass. Vertical is nothing spectacular, but all the capability is still there for inverted flight, basic sport aerobatics, stolen bush flying. You can do all that on 4-cell with the stock prop and get about a 12-minute flight time on top of that. We touch on this in a bit more detail in our final thoughts, but you can prop this thing up and run it on 4-cell and make a good bit more power than stock if you'd like. Something we figured we should mention, in all the flying in this review, we're running the tire pressure at around 5 inches to 5.5 inches diameter, which is pretty high. It makes them bounce more. You can get less bounciness with less tire pressure. On some of these gravel landings, we test the gear and tires a bit more than we intended, but they're up to the task. We were pushed for time to get everything filmed, So we didn't have time to monkey around with the tire pressure. We look forward to seeing what lower pressure will do for us. I really enjoy bush flying with models. I prefer a more scale style, and I've come to really enjoy simulating the beta or reversible pitch props that some full-scale bush planes used by utilizing reverse thrust on our electrics. No doubt the Super Timber has some punch on success. Here's our stall test. This is with the heaviest pack, the 4000 6L. This is clean. Full up elevator power off. It just kind of fades to the left wing, but never really drops it. Same thing, dirty with full flaps. Very benign stall and very easy to recover. It hovers very well. It'll do better with full span ailerons programmed in, and there's room for more elevator deflection if you go in the receiver to get it, so you can pop into them faster. This, we just wanted to show that yes, you can land and operate from a smooth surface, even with the tires pumped up high, if you use the right technique. Wrong technique, and with the tires pumped up high, you're going to do some bouncing. Well, there we go. So, to be fair, for an airplane to get a thumbs up, a fair thumbs up, it has to deliver what's promised. And this airplane does. It is plenty aerobatic with the potential to be even more so, and even without the full span ailerons, you can do some XA, you can do some 3D, you can cover anything that would be considered even remotely close to sport aerobatics. It flies slow well. You can land it short. If you want to use simulated beta or reverse thrust, you can land it really short. A lot of full-scale bush planes do that. The gear's tough. The tires are awesome. I love the interchangeable slats. The new features are functional. They're useful. And they really make this, in my mind, a Super Timber. I think it is aptly named. The only thing I can say, if there's a downside, and that is that if you only have 4-cell to fly it on, it has enough, but just on 4-cell. So keep in mind, you can always utilize a watt meter or the smart telemetry to check out your amp draw, and you can prop this thing up. A 1510 2-blade would be a good place to start, but you can put a much larger prop on this airplane on 4-cell, get the amp draw up closer to the amp draw that you have on 6-cell, and you're not going to be making the watts. You won't be making the horsepower that you make on 6-cell still, but you'll be making a lot more than it makes now. So if all you have to fly it on is 4-cell, a little bit of testing and a prop change, and you can make a lot more power that way. So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to go to a place that I have avoided going many times. A lot of people ask us, what do you think is the best this? What do you think is the best that? A lot of people give us multiple choice. They say, would you have this one or that one? Oftentimes they're talking about foam sport bush planes. So I'm going to tell you in no uncertain terms, this one is it for me. Now that doesn't mean that it's it for you. Everybody is different. Budget, flying style, skill, where you have to fly, features, styling, paint scheme. There's so many things that determine what's best for an individual. But for me personally, this is the sport foam bush plane to have. I like pretty much everything about this airplane, and we bless a lot of people with a blessing that we've been given. We give some free airplanes away to quite a few people. This one is staying in this hangar, and it's going to go to the field with me a lot. I mean, after all, storing it and getting it together goes like that. And I'm kind of lazy when it comes to field assembly, so that is a good thing for me. I got a lot of other sport bush planes in the hangar that stay together because I don't want to take them apart. This one, no problem. That's it for me. So you asked, there it is, and I can't say much more about it than that. So if you think that this might be the airplane for you, or just something that you'd like to add to your hangar, we'll put a link in the description where you can do just that. When you go through that link, it supports our channel. When you do that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's it for us. Happy flying. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings. And I am going flying.